When Ryan's when it's time to begin, it's on the Rewind-A-Raw with John Pollock and Wai Ting, the A-Team. That makes sense of these things we see in the ring every week on TV. It's Rewind-A-Raw for Monday night. Download it Tuesday morning from the Post Wrestling site. It's Rewind-A-Raw for Monday night on USA Now on the John and Wai Take the Mic.
It is not John and Wai, it is Jack and Wai for one more week because John Pollock happens to be moderating a local Q&A with the producers of Dark Side of the Ring and Samoa Joe today. And therefore, we are graced again with the presence of Jack Wannan, the writer on staff here at postwrestling.com, among several others. But Jack, pleasure to have you on for our free portion of Rewind-A-Raw.
Thanks as always. Yeah, there is a stipulation in the Rewind-A-Raw contract that says if your plans on Monday night involve Samoa Joe, you may take the week off. So John, doing much cooler stuff than us tonight. But
perhaps Joe is doing some extra recruiting for the ops, and we don't really know about it. You know?
Hey, maybe on Wednesday you're gonna go, where's John? I mean, we're supposed to do a show tonight, and then all of a sudden you tune in to Dynamite and you go, oh no. John's wearing an ops t-shirt.
If there's anybody that can get that man to finally try potato chips, it would be Hook. I don't know if you know that about John, Jack. Like, I don't know how.
Is this what?
He has never had a potato chip in his life.
Is there a reason, or is this just like a...
I have no idea. I'm sure there's a reason. I just don't think he likes them. So.
But how does he know? Okay, whatever. He's not here to defend himself. So let's... I'm saving this though. I'm putting this in the back of my cap, and I'm coming back to this next time I can confront him about this. But yes, I'm in the chair tonight alongside you, Wai, and I'm looking forward to chatting about all the Monday Night Raw coming out of SummerSlam.
Yeah. So we just spent a good chunk of time in the Post Wrestling XL edition talking about your thoughts on SummerSlam, some of our thoughts coming out of SummerSlam, in particular. Kevin Owens coming back from injury, some of the interviews he's conducted talking about that particular process. Brie Bella, the latest update on her, of course, in her unfortunate clavicle break. Shoulder, scapula break, shoulder injury. And also a little bit about the TKO Q2 result. AEW WrestleDream coming to Orlando. TNA Departures, including Jody Threat and Mara Sade. A bit of unfortunate news regarding a UFC flyweight that just passed away at the age of 34. And of course, the latest NXT and AEW Grand Slam Mexico lineup. So all of that in the XL edition of the Post Wrestling Cafe. Later on this week, it is a brand new month in the Post Wrestling Cafe, and that means this week, we are continuing our Dark Side of the Ring reviews, where John Pollock and I will be reuniting on Monday morning to talk about the Bossman episode and also the Renegade episode, which John will actually appear on as one of the experts. I think I would call him. I don't know if he would necessarily call himself, but listen to that in the Post Wrestling Cafe on Wednesday. Also on Friday, it is a big edition of MCU Later, as Rich Rand and WH Park will be talking about Spider-Man Brand New Day. All of that, plus later on this month, John Pollock and Neil Flanagan will touch down in London ahead of AEW All-In Weekend. So you can follow them with all of their escapades, okay? You don't want to know what these two will get up to when they're when they're in town together in a city like London. So they will be providing news updates for us as they go watch Rev Pro and just God knows what else. So all of that exclusively for Post Wrestling Cafe members, along with the continuation of our G1 Climax 36 coverage, which will conclude in a few weeks' time. But reviews of all of those shows, every single match in the tournament, rated and also reviewed to you, just for you, exclusively, Post Wrestling Cafe patrons.
Just for you.
Yeah, a little bit later on, I will actually reveal our patrons pick choices too for Rewind-A-Way. So if I forget about it, which I am very likely to do, Jack, try your best to remind me. If not, you know what? You guys will find out about it soon enough. But on to our review of WWE Raw we go. It is from Des Moines, Iowa. The first, of course, all the fallout from SummerSlam. This one coming to us from Casey Center in Des Moines. WrestleTix reports 6,659 tickets out. This is down from, about 7,164. So about roughly like 500 tickets different from SmackDown when it was here back in May of 2025. And we start things off with the OTC. Roman Reigns coming out fresh off of his victory over Seth Rollins last night. He says he's done exactly what he said he would do from Mania until now. That includes beating Seth Rollins. Roman says he and Rollins may have found some peace after the events of last night, and while he can't acknowledge him, he doesn't mind if the crowd does, and he lets them do his song. Now, this is notable because Iowa, where Seth Rollins is from, Rollins not making an appearance on the actual show.
Yeah, I thought there would be maybe something here, especially considering the location. But yeah, we got no Rollins tonight. Where they're maybe taking him off for a while.
Yeah, unless there was like maybe a dark segment that like I'm not aware of like at this moment in time, but like it was surprising, especially considering Becky was there. So you would think like I don't know if they're traveling together or whatever, but notable that he didn't show up in this segment, which you think he would have. Instead, it's LA Knight who interrupts, and he says says that he's been calling Roman out for months, and instead Roman put his dogs out in front of him, and he beat those dogs. So he reminds Roman that the last time Roman beat him, it was not a one-on-one match, and so he challenges Roman to a rematch. This time with just the two of them, and he doesn't care where it is. He even suggests WrestleMania, and I'm like, I don't think the Saudis will accept that one. Roman says LA Knight is a self-proclaimed megastar who wears Walmart wristwatches. What do you wear a wristwatch?
Yeah, I do, but I'm a very everyman, wearing the Casios and the things of like. I mean, if Roman Reigns in this situation, if I was confronting him, he'd probably obliterate me too. He was wearing something much more expensive and stupid, I would say.
You would certainly have to fight your way up to face the OTC.
Yes.
And so Roman instead shows off what he wears, which is something I can't even pronounce the name of, but
I'm too poor to even think of what that watch is.
Roman says Knight hasn't won anything. He's wasted his cousin's time, but he won't waste his, and tells him to get to the back of the line. Knight says Roman's aura is much bigger when he's not standing in front of him. He says he's earned his, but he and 38 people. He says he's earned his shot, but Roman and 38 other people always seem to take it away from him. He says the Shield is an appropriate name for your faction because you guys keep shielding me away from my opportunities. And he makes fun of like the Shield's call sign entrance. He says Roman wishes he was everything Knight is. He says he's the uncrowned champion, and he leaves, but says I'll be watching. So no, there's like no match actually set here, but they are beginning the path towards LA Knight versus Roman Reigns. What do you think about both of their appearances tonight, and are you interested in the match?
Yeah, that's two very different emotions here. Talking about this segment and this sort of storyline as a whole. I thought Reigns was good here as just sort of being that like they've done really good with him sort of walking this fine line of being someone who people will cheer, but also being a total dick. And that's what he was here. Like he was big manning LA Knight, talking about like, you don't act like a superstar. Like you're not anything like me. LA Knight did a great job at sort of being his usual charismatic self and discussing this idea of him being this sort of uncrowned champ and reiterating a lot of the points of his skepticism around the bloodline and things like that. I thought this was actually, like, in isolation, a pretty fun segment between these two guys. LA Knight challenging Roman Reigns. Do I think that is a good storyline? No. It's hard to get into an LA Knight storyline against Roman Reigns, of all people, because we've seen how LA Knight is booked. We've seen that he is not someone who is meant to win these types of matches. And we've also seen who Reigns has beaten in his title run so far. Some pretty big names. Do I buy into the fact that LA Knight has a shot? It's hard to, right?
Oh, of course it is. Yeah. Like, he's not an Obafemi. He's not even a Seth Rollins. It was hard for me to buy Seth Rollins, taking the title off.
Yes, it's true.
That, to me, though, doesn't necessarily make this like not worth doing, though, especially if we're talking about like I don't know, like a pay-per-view that is it maybe more of a bigger sort of like stadium size show. I think there's enough story there for them to tell the story, right? It's LA Knight, who's sort of in a Drew McIntyre type of position where he's just kind of had like it's one of the defining, he's kind of treated it like it's one of his like defining sort of like like narrative things, like Roman and the bloodline holding me back. So I think like he's done enough to be put onto the stage to hopefully just kind of see what he can do, and also to invest into like his status as a main eventer, so that maybe eventually the crowd will be able to see him as that in a much more natural way. I will say though, like segments like these, I think go a long way in like helping that, because like he sounded like really strong charismatically. He sounded up to, I think, the standard of what you want out of a top end guy opposing somebody as maybe with as much aura as a Roman Reigns. I thought like the confidence and charisma like were able to shine through, so that by the end you weren't forgetting about Knight. In fact, I kind of feel like he kind of carried the segment a lot more than Roman does in his sort of like more limited sort of like mannerisms, right? So I think all of this is like really worthwhile just to like at least invest in LA Knight, so that next time he has a title program, whether or not it's against Roman, you might be able to buy him as a title winner.
I think what hurts for me in this situation is the idea that he talks about being this like uncrowned champion, like people's champion type of situation. But it's hard to buy that when we see what he does in championship positions, and that's lose. You're not a people's champion if you simply can't deliver in those positions. And for me, that part of his character doesn't make too much sense. I think it's true. He is the spotlight in any talking segment. Other than apparently recently we found out when Solo Sikoa was in that segment. But he was good here. I really can't get down with this rivalry, unfortunately.
Well, we'll see what they can do. I mean, I maybe the expectation would be Money in the Bank as the match, but yeah, well, I guess you never really know. Let's go to our first match here. It's Javon Evans taking on Ethan Page, and the announcers tell us this is their 5th match together dating back to NXT, and I thought these two had what was to me a pretty excellent match here. Javon goes for a springboard, Page pulls down the ropes to trip him, leading to a head and leg capture belly to back suplex from Page. Javon delivers his barricade dive on the outside and follows up with a red dot in the ring. Page then tries to win by using leverage from the ropes, but he gets caught for it. Page tries to pull the turnbuckle off, and Evans ends up leapfrogging over both Page and the ref to deliver an OG cutter off the top for the victory in a pretty spectacular looking finish here. First of all, your thoughts on the match itself?
Yeah, no, this was a really fun one. I mean, two of the more exciting mid-card guys on Raw, and sort of furthering my point that I think like one of the best parts of Raw as of late is just this pack of mid-card guys, which they're just seemingly like putting in different combinations each week. Like, oh, okay, what if we put these guys together again? And then, okay, what if we like add Penta in there or whatever? I'm not going to, mention the same points I said last week about Ethan Page. But yeah, these two are fun. And this played out exactly like you expected. I do want to give you credit, because last week when both these guys picked up singles wins, you mentioned the idea that maybe there's like some sort of unofficial tournament going on, and that's exactly what we saw with this booking. So yeah.
But I thought it presented like a really strong contrast of styles here between like your sneaky, clever heel and like the incredibly athletic babyface. And like they are clearly like pushing Javon. They're not putting this a title on him just yet, but they are giving him these sort of like great spotlight matches in order for him to gain enough favor so that they can move him onto like the next step of his career. But to me, like the standouts continue to be some of these heels, in that I thought Ethan Page here continues to really impress. He is carving out for himself a place on the card that feels somewhat unique, in that he's the thinking man's heel. He's the guy who's like thinking outside of the box, doing things like, pulling the ropes down to prevent the springboard, or just like just kind of doing more sneaky, thoughtful, heelish things that others, at least on Raw, aren't really doing so much. So I think he's been a terrific addition to the main roster, and I am just like really hopeful that they see enough in him that they will escalate him too, in due time. So
there's something really worth noting, that even in these losing performances, he's really sticking out, and I think a lot of people are noticing that. He was never, like he wasn't always a huge player in NXT, but he always felt like a huge player just because of how important good his performances were. So yeah, I echo the sentiment you just said.
So if this was some sort of unofficial tournament, I suppose this man got a bye, because it is the return of Big Cass. He
Yes.
just storms the ring afterwards and comes in, confronts Javon, and just sneaks up from behind, delivers a big boot to him. Cass is back. No Enzo here. East River Crossing delivered to Javon Evans, laying him out. And so not maybe like there was some suggestion of him of this like guy, who was talking all about like not living up to past expectations and just like having to go through a lot in order to come back. Maybe that was somewhat suggesting a more of a babyface role, but he's coming back as a full-on heel here, not giving you any sort of like sob story. He's just coming in attacking a babyface in this case, which I think is the right move because like, those stories are maybe interesting, but they're hardly enough to get the crowd behind you, as I think like to me has been evidenced by Royce Keys, where we saw those great vignettes, and sure, like we might know who he is, we might feel bad for him, but you see him in front of these crowds even up until SummerSlam. I think he's been struggling as a babyface, to really gain the crowd's favor. I would have felt the same way about Cass. I think if he came as a babyface. Your thoughts on Big Cass's return here?
Yeah, no, part of me feels bad that Evans is in this position because I feel like he's the guy who should be like the focal point of a storyline, and he's the guy who should be the one getting elevated, but he is in the position right now to be elevating the returning Big Cass. I like that they're giving him this serious heel character, and he cut a promo later on the show that sort of highlights more of this, but he is talking about how, he hit rock bottom after WWE and is on this rise back up. And I think it's the right direction to go with him. My question is, so he was promoted for this show for weeks. Like we saw these video packages and it was very clearly mentioning that he was going to be on this show. And time comes for this show and he debuts by attacking Javon Evans. My question is, did Adam Pearce go, okay, we have this guy debuting next week. I don't really have anything for him. I'm just going to let him figure this out.
I mean, maybe Cass was like, "Hey, can I attack Javon Evans on the show?"
Was like, "That's a great idea."
Like, yeah, okay, sure, yeah, why not? Like it makes a splash. I mean, guys rarely have wrestling matches on the day that they're teased to debut, though, right? It's That's usually true. Something like this.
I do have to eat my words because last week on the show I said you asked me if I'm interested in his debut, and I was like, well, they're probably going to take like 6 months to roll out his character like they did with Royce Keys. This was much more like. Getting out there immediately with everything. So I do have to say, just up front, I do give them credit for actually making him interesting a weekend.
They're not Blake Monroeing him.
No, thank God.
So I will say so I haven't seen enough about like this sort of new character to be able to make any sort of judgment, but I do think like in him coming in as a big man, I do think like the bar is set really high now for big men, in that like your standard is a guy like Inoba Femi who like can do spectacular things in the ring, and he can talk. And not to say like Cass can talk to some extent, but like I worry that like without Enzo next to him, he will just come across as a generic big guy, which I just don't think like are that popular anymore. Like Tala Tonga is just to me like a like nothing, like nothing memorable at least. So I'm hoping they have something unique about him that they can present.
What I find interesting is that he's coming back with this character at a time where they're not direct comparisons, but I feel like Baron Corbin is just a very similar character in the sense that he is a guy who is coming back with a more focused, intense character, and the storylines that he was cut and then he sort of retrained himself and now he's coming back. Cass has actually a more interesting story in my opinion, in that he had much more struggle that we know of in his time away from WWE, and he really had to pull himself out of the depths of hell. But I do actually think he's in a tough spot here because his character, apart from that, real darkness he can pull from, really is similar to Baron Corbin's. And Baron Corbin just kind of started with this new character by winning the US title on SummerSlam. So I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one seeing this, but to me, it's like we kind of have the same thing going on two different shows here.
No, the worlds are totally different. Okay, the audiences are different, Jack. I don't think they're worried about that at all. Like no talents ever cross over.
All the SmackDown viewers are gonna tune in on Friday and go, hold on, two of our guys main evented on Monday? What? And we missed this?
You know what? They have their reasons. Okay, we can only trust them. We go to the back where Roman is with the Bloodline for the first time, I guess, since SummerSlam, because this is where Roman addresses their SummerSlam loss. Roman is mad. He wants to maintain their status as equals this time around, but he does have his standards. And he asks, again, where Solo Sikoa is. They have not been able to bring him back yet. He asked about Jacob. He asked Jacob about Royce Keys and why Royce Keys keeps calling Jacob his family. He calls Royce Keys just one of the circus folk, just one of the boys. This is their only family. Roman doesn't want the Usos to get LA Knight. They had their chance, so he tells them to leave it up to them. And this is when LA Knight shows up, and he just conveniently overheard Roman telling the Usos and Jacob to leave him alone. So then he just starts taunting them, and because the Usos are so obedient, Knight knows that they will not touch him. So an official restraining order, a one-way restraining order here given from Roman Reigns to the Usos and Jacob Fatu so that they can't touch LA Knight.
I do like that part of Knight's character is that he just, to a T, understands everything about the bloodline and is willing to use all of it against them. And I thought that was displayed well here.
I mean, how silly does it make the bloodline look, though? Like, what just to open the door for this guy to just continue to disrespect their family without them being able to retaliate? Come on.
It makes them look silly, but like that's the whole, like, humiliation is a huge part of the whole bloodline story. That, I mean, Roman is saying stuff about them being equals while making them his henchmen. Like there's contradictions throughout all of it.
So we come back after a commercial break, and it's Jacob and Royce Keys in the back, and they talk about all the times they fought. Royce does, and Royce says he will forgive everything. He says they're family. Jacob repeats what Roman said to him. He says, "You're not family. You're just one of the boys. I'm bloodline." Jacob has had enough of this back and forth and challenges Royce Keys to a street fight in our main event tonight.
And then Royce Keys should have responded like, "But I was just telling you it's like water under the bridge. Like I don't see the point of this."
No, he's like, the bridge is strong. All right, it's there's still plenty here. So that is our main event tonight, and we have up next Liv Morgan in the Judgment Day. They, of course, are celebrating Liv Morgan's victory over Io Sky last night. Liv also sporting a black eye here that you can't see in this photo, but we'll certainly see it on screen. And she says now that she's done with Io, she sees no more challengers. She continues to say she will be the longest and greatest reigning champion of all time. She does, of course, talk about Raquel's IC title win, and Raquel has like a custom Intercontinental Championship with like barbed wire around it now, and I guess kind of cool, even though I don't know if I've ever seen her touch barbed wire before in any sort of wrestling match. But
no, I dig the custom titles. I mean, this kind of just looks like a title with a little bit of barbed wire wrapped around it, but
that they will sell for $400 more than usual.
Yes, that's a good point. You understand the hustle.
That's it. Yeah. So this is all a setup for Roxanne Perez versus Sol Ruca, which is our match right now. Sol delivers like a pretty rare Romero special on television here, in inverted surfboard, if you will, and looked pretty good here. Follows up with a moonsault to the floor, goes for the rainbow DDT, but Roxanne knocks her off balance to take control through the commercial break. Roxanne counters an X Factor with a headstand, and then Perez goes for like this kick that totally seems to miss, and the announcers maybe point out the sort of awkwardness of it all. She goes for pop rocks, but Ruca fights out and delivers the X Factor successfully. Liv and Raquel then get involved, and eventually it causes a DQ after the ref catches Liv Morgan. This does not matter, though, because the Judgment Day just want to beat Sol Ruca down. So a 3-on-1 beatdown ensues. Liv ends up standing over Ruca when Becky Lynch's music hits. And it is the first time in 2 months that we have seen Becky. And she appears to be a babyface again. Becky does not want Raquel's IC championship. She says she's made that relevant, so her job is done. Instead, she came here for Liv Morgan's championship, and she says she doesn't want Liv to wait 100 days to defend it again. She calls Liv Morgan a glorified valet who has been flirting instead of fighting as a champion. She calls hers the worst title reign of all time, and it's not just her saying it; everybody's saying it. Liv responds and says Becky should be at home being a mommy. She's in her face because Becky is jealous. She says Becky's time is over and her time is now. She says, I am the greatest women's champion of all time. Becky says, you're not even the greatest women's champion in your own group. or yeah, or, you're not even the greatest women's champion that slept with Dominic.
Oh.
So this is when the pyro hits, and out comes Stephanie Vaquer. The fans chant holy, they chant holy shit for this. Vaquer takes Liv out, fights off the rest of the group. Becky and Vaquer then go face to face. Vaquer says, "Stay out of my way." Becky says, "Or what?" So we have the makings of certainly a bit more of a fuller women's division right now here on Raw, with some much needed star power in the way of Stephanie Vaquer's return, and also Becky Lynch is a babyface now.
Yes, much needed. That is exactly the way to put it here. Yeah, they had a long exchange here in the ring, Lynch and Vaquer, and there was no mic on them. You could kind of just like read their lips. I kind of would have liked if they picked up on this a little more with like a mic on a camera or something, because they exchanged like quite a few words here. But yeah, I guess that's the sort of the number one contenders thing we're doing here. It's a fun one. I mean, two names who've been out for a while, Vaquer especially. I thought the interesting thing here was that, so Becky had this just aggressive heel character where she was almost like a completely different person. A lot of people sort of drew parallels to like how she was like playing up like how Trump acts in his like social media posts and things like that. She makes reference to some of the things she said before in this promo here, but otherwise it's kind of a complete rejection of that ever happening. Like she almost finally emerged out of this like episode or something. How do you feel about this?
I mean, it's not the first time that she's kind of flipped back and forth, and I think it's perfectly acceptable now. Like, I don't think it's such a drastic character change that like makes her makes it not make sense. Like, she's still like aggressive. She's still I wouldn't necessarily say she was never really like like a pushover at all. Like, she's just now pushing her energies towards somebody we should hate a bit more in Liv Morgan. I think it's still somewhat consistent. And I also think like her pairing, her babyface or heel status, like in recent years, seems to very much, I think, like maybe unofficially align with Seth Rollins's in that, like, they may have ambitions of like pairing them together again in the future, and they just maybe in their heads feel it's a bit more convenient to have the both of them be the same rather than on opposite directions. I don't really dislike it. I'm more so just kind of excited just because of the matchmaking, because I think I am sensing maybe still like like with the men, some exhaustion of seeing some of the same faces at the top. Yeah. I'm not really like feeling that myself. I in fact think like Becky is much needed, in the top mix. I think like these sort of interactions she had here with Liv Morgan, even though they have like had a feud in the past, in 2024. I feel like this feels different to me now because Liv Morgan feels so different. Like, even compared to back then, her confidence and her just like character work and just her, I think, smoothness feels so much stronger. So that now we get her in this position as the lead heel against a babyface Becky Lynch. I'm quite excited to see what the results of that are. And I think the star power is as high as I think, it's been in quite some time. Not to mention, like, this could be a three-way program. We may be expecting a number one contenders match between, Stephanie and Becky, but they could maybe shape this into a three-way program so that the both of them are involved throughout. That would freshen things up for really everybody.
Totally. Yeah, I'm down for that as well. Yeah, no, just the Lynch character thing was sort of front of mind through that whole segment. But obviously the important thing here is that the roster is just so dearly needed. Not just two people, but like two stars that you can throw into that top program without needing much of a real build or packaging. And like Vaquer and Lynch, those are just like two prime examples of people you can really just throw back into the mix with no issue.
What do you see for Io Sky, who is not on the show at all?
I have no clue, because I feel like she's someone who has been at the top of the card for so long, or at least top of the division, that it would feel kind of weird to downgrade her to a smaller storyline.
What storyline would there be for her? Like, number one, airtime is an issue. Number two, she doesn't have her like scene partners in Asuka, Kairi, Rhea. Just right,
cutting them out of the mix, I feel like left her with so little to work with. It means that, I mean, since she is alone and let's just ignore the fact that Rhea is injured. If Rhea was even around, she's on a different show. You don't have a way to sort of keep her on TV, just even in the background for now. And that's tough.
I guess I'm sensing like, well, Lyra now like is a free, dance partner.
You could do that, yeah.
With Bailey, like we don't exactly know what Bailey's status is, but like I guess you could do an Io versus Lyra feud with Lyra carrying the bulk of the talking, which would be like fascinating in many ways, but that would be somewhat fresh. But that would also, to me, like maybe struggle for airtime in a sea of now, like with a Becky Lynch and Stephanie Vaquer in there. So
yes, yeah. I do wonder also if we got to somehow figure in Sol Ruca getting a rematch for the title, especially after winning by DQ in the match this week. So, right. They're probably going to work that in somehow. So that's just another thing that you have to take stock for.
So, Brock Lesnar here, we see like Cole kind of like takes us to a video package for Brock Lesnar, and Cole kind of like starts it by saying, if this was the last time we saw Brock Lesnar, and we are it follows with like essentially like I feel like I've seen this video package before.
I was going to ask you, am I going crazy, or have we not seen this exact same video package before?
With a few alterations, but I mean, I'm positive I've seen a Brock Lesnar montage video set to "I Stand Alone" by Godsmack.
Yeah, and it was like when I saw the Batista interview, I was like, yeah, no, I've definitely seen this before.
Yeah. So I mean, really, it was just like sort of a highlight package, featuring clips from various interviews and documentary specials of people talking about Brock Lesnar. The addition of some SummerSlam footage, including like Obafemi and Triple H talking about him, both in the press conference and also on the sort of panel that we saw. In essence, it felt like a goodbye summary of his career, like the type of video you would see for a Hall of Fame induction, for instance. So you do have a clip in here as well, added on, of Roman Reigns calling him one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, telling him to have fun in the woods. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, does it take some value from a goodbye video package if you use that same video package the time that he said goodbye a few months ago, only to come right back? I mean, to me, this is just so silly. Like, if someone's career is so great, can't you maybe stitch together like another 2-minute compilation of their career? Or like, this is just lazy and weird.
I get the feeling they themselves don't know.
No, exactly.
Yeah. What's going on, like whether or not Brock wants to come back. And I mean, I'm sensing very much like an Undertaker type of indecisiveness about this, where maybe they legitimately, or maybe he legitimately felt WrestleMania was going to be it, but then decided not to. Maybe this was a very similar presentation. If it wasn't his last match, I mean, it certainly feels like the company is ready to bid farewell to him through like this, like, videos like this. But at the same time, the next time a Saudi show comes around, of course they would welcome him back.
Yeah, no, totally. It's weird. Like, you asked me last week, like, if I would have him retire after the match, and my thing was just like, I don't think WWE going into this even knows what's next for him. So I just don't know what they would do. And yeah, this video package and the way they packaged it with Cole, especially being very careful with his lines here, saying, if this is it, everything is subject to change. I don't have to tell you this as a fellow wrestling viewer, that retirements, even if it's not Lesnar, always subject to change.
So in the back, we see Paul Heyman watching this video package on the monitor, and out comes Obafemi, about to come out for his sort of a in-ring address. Before he walked past Heyman to tell Brock Lesnar, thank you. And Heyman says it would be his pleasure, shakes his hand, and congratulates him. So that was their sort of like wrap up of their little interaction here between Obafemi and Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman. And then we see Obafemi come out. He's dressed in a what I would assume to be a traditional white robe here, looking pretty amazing, doing the walkout thing. Like, look at that shot. So Oba comes out, addresses the crowd. He says, well, very much like Roman Reigns, he and his opponent came out of SummerSlam with newfound respect for one another. He realizes Brock's actions now weren't done out of jealousy or evil, but that it was a test. And the question leading to or coming out of WrestleMania was always whether Obafemi could swim, and he says he answered those quickly. But going into SummerSlam, the question was, can Obafemi swim, and how long can he hold his breath? And Oba says he swam up, and he passed the test. He says the beast now can finally rest. Oba then says what is lined out next for him is clear, but he says there's no correct path for him, and he's going to forge his own path, and he's going to lead the new generation. The old guard will fall, and if anybody has a problem, well, you'll be answering to the ruler, Obafemi. What do you think about the promo from Oba here?
It was a decent promo. I mean, obviously we don't like. We were given some hints as to what could be next for him, but this was just sort of like a solid way to remind us what he's coming off of and where he's heading next. I don't know how I feel about them reminding us on the graphics and everything that he won King of the Ring, because it's just kind of like a real blemish on the past few months for him that he won King of the Ring and then did nothing with it.
So what was maybe is strange in addition to all that is that right after this segment, you had Graves say that one of Oba's quote unquote optional destinations is a title match, and like goes on to even suggest it could either be Reigns or it could be Punk. So like this combined with CM Punk on the post show talking like about Obafemi, I think like he said something to the effect of like Oba still has a title shot remaining, and like he'll be ready for him. That I think just further confuses whether or not this King of the Ring actually still happens to be active or not.
Yes. Yes, CM Punk was mentioning that, hey, we have this number one contenders match, but like I don't know, like maybe I'll have like another contender leapfrog, which was wild. But yeah, so it's like whatever is convenient this week is what happened with his title shot from King of the Ring. Either he threw it away because he's so brave and wanted to go after Lesnar, or he actually just has it banked. I mean, what's stupid is like his wins are at this point big enough that even if he threw away the King of the Ring title opportunity, like you could make the case for him to just earn a title shot off of his past performances. So does it really matter? No, but like for sake of storytelling, it's been just so frustrating.
It's been messy, like totally messy, and that like I think the King of the Ring is still enough of a like weird plot hole that they should address it, but I also sense they want to delay this guy's title, maybe even challenge until WrestleMania season, until
it
the
sounds
Rumble,
like
right?
yeah,
And
seems
that's
like
that presents its own real problems, right? So we may have some idea though of what his next program is, because well, Oba did mention leading the new generation, and this, of course, will upset somebody who was at one point considered the leader of the new generation, Braun Breaker, who comes out with the vision up next, and he and Obafemi share a long stare down on the ramp. So that seems to be our next program. I do like the fact that so this seems to be our next program between the two, and that the two of them fighting for like being this sort of leader of the new generation type of like moniker. Like I kind of enjoy it simply for the fact that we now have some sort of like demarcation point for what a new era could possibly be. Like we see a lot of NXT talents kind of come and go, and there's never really the announcement that, hey, like we're in like a new era that often. Like I think back to Cena's promo about, or at least mentioning ruthless aggression as like in hindsight now, 20 something years later, that feels like a very sort of like concrete line in the sand of where we may have transitioned from like the previous era to like a new era. And I think like WWE storytelling often benefits from promos like this, where you can have a guy say, this is the start of a new era, and I'm going to be the leader of it, which I feel like we kind of got from Obafemi here. So it is Obafemi walking beyond the path, and the match is Joe Hendry versus Braun Breaker. And to tell you how serious Braun Breaker was taking this match, he spends the opening portions of it after the bell rings staring back down the ramp, clearly thinking about Obafemi still. Hendry is in fact trying to get his attention, and he does, as he just Braun just clotheslines him and sends him out to the outside, where Hendry, I guess, just like out of frustration, decides to attack Austin Theory just to maybe show he's not that much of a pushover. He goes back into the ring where Braun spears him, and it's about as quick of a squash as you can get. So Braun Breaker wins, and then just goes right to the back, not caring at all about what's left behind here. So in the sort of follow-up to this, Austin Theory comes in attacking Joe Hendry, and this prompts Akira Tozawa to come in. Of course, Otis now being taken out from a prior post-match attack. Akira Tozawa takes Austin Theory out. Braun Breaker, thankfully, is nowhere to be seen. He's like, yeah, you got this program with Tozawa. I'm going to be focused on Obafemi here. So that takes us to at least our next TV match, I could say, between Austin Theory and Tozawa. Meanwhile, Obafemi is very much set on, or Braun Breaker is very much paying attention to Oba.
Yeah, no, it's kind of funny to see like a huge rivalry being teased between like two guys who they want to pitch as like generation defining, and then you go from that to being like, here's Austin Theory and Akira Tozawa battling it out. Like, it's just such a weird contrast here. I think Braun versus Oba, that's a really fun one. I think Braun has needed something of substance because they've kind of just had him on the back burner for a few weeks, and it's been a little concerning because he is a guy who a lot of people see the future in. Joe Hendry being squashed out like this, I thought was a little weird because, like, yes, he is a comedy wrestler, but they have built up his character as like he's the guy who started doing amateur wrestling just so he could get better at pro wrestling and like all these things. Like, it's been part of his character that he actually has like the athletic skills to be a wrestler and not just a comedy guy. But whatever, these things
not against a Braun Breaker, right? Like on the card, like you got Danhausen, who again just kind of exists in his own lane of like guys not to really take seriously, but like, like we'll get plenty of airtime and we'll get plenty of favor. Joe Hendry kind of like exists, but like as on that level, but not as popular in that he's sort of a gimmick guy. He's there to like entertain, but not necessarily get credible wins. And I feel like at this point, even though they may have tried with that NXT title reign, I don't think they managed to achieve any sort of legitimacy in him, or at least like not enough to maybe have him be any sort of significant player on the show. And so I felt he was a somewhat appropriate, person here for Braun to just essentially kill.
No, that's fair. And I mean, the thing with Joe Hendry is like, does a loss really change anything for him and like his overness or his position on the card? Like, no. So yeah, I think you've won me over with that point.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I don't know if it was like intentional that they were just simply waiting for SummerSlam to go by before like taking Braun Breaker seriously again. But I felt like they did, like, to me, I feel like they did a good amount of damage to Braun just by having him be such a background player to Austin Theory over the past few weeks.
Yeah.
Whether or not that was always the plan, or if they finally came to their senses tonight and here by putting him front and center, lifting him essentially out of this like tag team like drama with the Alpha Academy to instead positioning him next to Obafemi, I was certainly happy to see it because this was the most relevant Braun Breaker has felt in quite some time.
I think it damaged him, but not to the extent where this storyline isn't believable. Like, I think you can still get away with doing Oba versus Braun and it being like, if you build it correctly, this big matchup. But yes, it did definitely hurt him having just really being a background player in a faction which isn't doing too hot in general right now.
So we go back to the back where, first Big Cass is interviewed, and Big Cass kind of stares blankly at the camera, just simply takes the mic from the interviewer, says, for 8 years, he was left in the dirt. He says it was nothing personal with Javon, but he is here to stack bodies, and Javon just happened to be the first. He won't be the last. So pretty quick and simple promo from Big Cass here, like not so many words, just kind of repeating what the videos have kind of explained to us. I liked it. Did it change your opinion at all here?
I thought it was good. I think it's in line with what you want to see with his character.
Yeah. It didn't do that much for me just yet, but I mean, it was also incredibly brief. It seems like the new gimmick now is how big can you open your eyes? So he's 7 foot tall. You can't teach that. I guess.
How hard can you tan?
How hard can you tan? Of course. Yeah. So then we also go to Chad Gable, who says they are now, man. Chad Gable comes out for his essentially. Did I miss this like Paul Heyman, Bob Breaker's segment here? Maybe that's coming up later. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. So up next we go to Chad Gable, who shows up, and essentially this is sort of like his celebration speech, where Chad Gable says, first of all, this clap. Oh man, they are working so hard to try to get this clap
what's scaring
over.
me is I'm starting to see people who are like, yeah, I like this thing now, and it's like, guys, no, like, don't let them trick you like this.
What are they going for? What are they going for? Because, like, I mean, this man
know.
has managed to build so much like equity through that Grande Americano match that just presented him in just, I don't know, the most dramatic, like, serious light. And they come out here now doing like with this 80s music, which in itself isn't that bad, but coming off of the Grande Americano match, I don't think fits him at all. Secondly, they're trying to attach this like clap to him that looks so forced and so awkward that I think it's making him look like dorky, which is exactly what he's been fighting against.
Yeah,
there are some people that are doing it, and they encourage this by like highlighting those people in particular. So they're really like wanting to make this clapping thing a thing. He calls last night the greatest moment of his career, and he thanks Penta, thanks the fans for sticking with him for 10 years. And if you had any sort of like doubt about what they were referring to when on commentary they were talking about him like fighting through like a dark place or whatever, he specifically mentions, including when I was Shorty G. He says I crawled out of a river of crap to come out clean on the other side, and he delivered on his promise. So further, like he was talking about Vince's booking as if like Big Cass was talking about his personal demons, you know, like having to fight through that in order to get to the side. So this is when Penta comes out, says Gable has earned his respect, calls him a true luchador, and calls him one of the best wrestlers in the world. And they're quickly interrupted by the Judgment Day. And, you know, I was somewhat disappointed that Penta, at least here, didn't make mention of like, you know, hey, how about a rematch? Or like, hey, you got lucky last time, but next time it'll be different. Like, I mean, if you're a Penta fan, this just felt like he was completely just like, yeah, take my spot. You know, like, I'm cool with it. I'm just going to sit in the sidelines here. Like, I think Penta needed to show a little bit more fight.
He did 11 title matches in a few months. He's tired. I think.
I guess so. Yeah, I'm done. Put me on main event. I'm finished. This is when the Judgment Day interrupt, and you know, they do a whole thing. Gable essentially challenges them to a match, and they accept. So we get the match: Penta and Gable versus Judgment Day here. Gable has the ankle lock on Dom, but JD breaks it up. Penta with the destroyer to JD on the outside. It looked awesome, actually. You know, JD took it really well. Dom has the bell hammer. He's about to go for the 619. Gable stops the move, taking the hammer out. Penta ends up hitting Dom with the title belt behind the ref's back. I mean, you know, because it's fine for a babyface to cheat as long as, you know, a heel was doing it first. So this leads to the Chaos Theory, and the babyfaces get the victory here in what I thought was a pretty strong match in ring. What do you think, Jack?
Yeah, I thought it was a decent match. I thought the referee spot at the end was a little wacky because the referee was he was trying to put away the hammer and give it back to the timekeeper's area. But the title shot here, the cheating, happened so near him that instead of giving it to the timekeeper's area, he had to like kind of give it near the hard cam, which is not near the timekeeper's area. So he could actually be looking away from this spot. And it just,
right.
Something about the positioning of it was awkward because the ref had to really go out of his way to not see this title cheating that happened here. But yeah, other than that, it was a fun match. I was surprised we got this one because it started at like 10 o'clock and we still had a main event coming up.
I thought Penta looked great here. Like, to me, like, he always stands out in these sort of like high-paced made-for-TV matches, and I think JD like continues to really like well in this sort of role as just like the guy for like, you know, the babyface to beat up. Interesting that it was Dom taking the pin here, because I mean the expectation coming out of this would be Gable versus Dom, but of course, you know, they could probably still get there in other ways. So then we go to our Braun Breaker Paul Heyman segment in the back, where, you know, they kind of have a bit of an awkward interaction because, of course, the last time we saw them together, Heyman essentially like quit the vision, right? So Braun walks past, they kind of share a bit of an awkward glance, and Braun ends up talking to Paul. He says, Oba tried to get in my way, and I'm going to do something about it. And then so he asks Heyman where Oba is. Heyman says, why would I know where Oba is? And Braun says, oh, I'm sorry. I thought that was your new best friend. So they're introducing at least some tension here between Braun Breaker and Paul Heyman. Where do you think it all leads?
Oh man, I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I haven't given that much thought to where this leads. I mean, I think Paul's gonna be repping someone new soon, right?
My expectation is just like this all ends up with Paul Heyman like managing Braun Breaker again. Like I just think like it makes too much sense for number one, like Heyman, I think can only be a heel. So this sort of like truce with Braun, I don't really buy. Number two, Braun still really needs a mouthpiece, and it's not Austin Theory. You know, it's not Logan Paul. It's got to be somebody as serious as a Paul Heyman. And I think as a singles act, like to me, this makes a whole lot more sense. It makes sense for Paul Heyman to attach to somebody who could be a future main eventer rather than just anybody else on this roster. So, I mean, I'm just trying to think.
And I mean, like the fact that they haven't gone for like a clean break between these two sort of teases that there's still something more there, right?
So how will they extract Braun Breaker out of the vision? And you know, I and into this feud with Obafemi is maybe like my curiosity next.
Yeah.
Of course, also we had, I believe this is Lyra in the background with
yes,
Pierce talking about something. What's my next program? I bet is what she's asking. You know.
Yeah.
So we got Royce Keys, Jacob Fatu at our main event here in a street fight. And, well, Graves tells us more about their shared history together. The two of them, well, Royce Keys taking the bus for 9 hours to go train at Rikishi and Gangrel school where Jacob Fatu also trained, sleeping on each other's couches, sharing money to buy food. And, you know, Keys reverses an Irish whip to the outside, sends Fatu into the steps, legs first. Keys is about to go grab a table from the under the ring, but Fatu, signifying that he is the heel in this match, stops him. And then we get some live theater here, courtesy of you get that bloodline influence where Fatu says, "I've got no choice. I have to do this." Keys, "You're supposed to be my brother." So, It's just their style. Keys delivers a running power slam to Jacob through the barricade. Keys then throws a flying clothesline to Jacob on the outside. They've got chairs in the ring now. Lots of kendo stick shots. 2 chairs are unfolded in the ring as Keys end up suplexing Fatu through them. Fatu then delivers Gangrel's implant DDT onto the chair. Keys delivers a second rope spinning power slam onto the chairs. The ultimate spine buster gets a 2 count. And then Fatu sends Keys through a table with the pop-up Samoan, following up with the mighty moonsault, and then the Tongan death grip, as the ref calls it. Keys is out. Fatu won't let go, showing that this is, a lot more than just, a war between two brothers here. Fatu locks it back in after he's broken off, and they do the whole mouth blood deal with Keys. Fatu says, "I told you it's family business." Fatu then delivers repeated hip attacks, wraps the chair around Keys' head, and then hip attacks him, murdering Royce Keys live on air on Monday Night Raw. And Roman comes out showing his approval. Your thoughts on this match and also closing angle?
Yeah, so just starting with the match, this was a pretty good street fight. Like, I thought the closing sequence from Fatu especially was really fun. He put together some really great moves here. I thought the pop-up Samoan drop into the table, which was in the corner, just looked amazing. This being the main event for Raw, I just didn't really care that much. Like, I don't know. This didn't feel like it should have main evented the show. I get that you can't, not every single episode has to end with a Reigns segment or a title match or some sort of huge change, but this still kind of felt like a pretty weak match to close the show, especially one coming off of a pay-per-view, coming off of a PLE. Sorry, I've got to get with the times here. I don't know. Did you feel this way at all? When I was watching this, I was kind of like, this is it? Like, this is how we're ending the show?
Not me so much, Jack, because like I guess at this point I recognize that what you end these shows with isn't necessarily the most it's supposed to be important, but not necessarily the most important thing on the show. Like, because well, probably the least amount of people might be watching this particular portion than compared to the start of the show, for instance.
Yeah, I just for some reason, like, these guys faced off at SummerSlam. they figured out some way to tonight extend it for one more night. I just don't really. To me, there was no real hook.
Yeah, well, I don't disagree with that. The fact that like maybe I don't know if this necessarily like solves anything, but you did get a big angle to close it where I mean Keys should be out for quite a bit, right?
Yeah, and he was spitting blood.
Yeah. For what it's worth, I thought this was Key's best match like in WWE thus far. Like it worked to a style that I think like he like at this point, like if you're a big man, I think like your biggest appeal to the crowd is having these sort of Godzilla like type of like kaiju battles that like we've seen Braun Breaker, even Braun Strowman, have like a Bronson Reed, and and like your Braun Strowmans have like to sort of like great effect. These sort of like big car crash matches with like falls count anywhere stipulations that involve just like these giant guys taking these big massive falls. I think like those are the expectations we have of like our big men, and this at least made Keys feel like to me much more compelling in ring than he typically does. Showed good chemistry with Fatu, just like on that sort of like meat level, and I was entertained by the match. And I think he's still really struggling, to again connect with the audience as a babyface, and I do wonder if this sort of like brief exit represents some sort of ability for them to refresh Royce Keys, possibly even turning him, to the heel side of things. Joining Fatu would be sort of an odd fit, as part of a bloodline, for instance. But
especially after the whole storyline was that Fatu was like, "I reject you. You're not part of my family."
Yeah, and you just broke my neck. But like, I would like to see him as a heel, because I do think like the babyface run isn't necessarily working so well. So we get an interesting closing angle here as Roman goes to the back after showing his approval. He is greeted by Rey Mysterio, and they shake hands. Rey mentions,
"This is a great line here.
I'm the GM of AAA, right?" Roman says, "I do know." So I'm like, okay, I know he's a big deal, right? But why the fuck would you script somebody on your roster to say they don't give a shit about one of your other products that you're trying to get people to watch?
I mean, it was just a few weeks ago we had Brock Lesnar saying that Paul Heyman fills him in on what happens on Monday Night Raw.
Yeah,
and this is AAA we're talking about. This is a digital exclusive for viewers like Reigns in the US.
They want to present their guys as such a big deal that they don't have time to not just not watch their shows, but not pay any attention to current storylines that are happening on the show.
Is it that they don't have time, or it's that they just have better things to do, like cool people things to do?
Exactly. It is uncool to watch Raw. It is uncool to watch AAA.
Reigns has escaped the class that needs to watch WWE.
Exactly. He's not one of you
other things.
He's not one of you IWC nerds, okay? Who like who craves every single who goes on Cage Match right after this and like looks up like what people are
You think he even knows what Club WWE is?
No, of course not. So I think lines like this are totally perplexing, and
and he hit Rey Mysterio with a "Sorry, who are you?"
I mean, yeah, but like, so I mean, they kind of walk off camera just to kind of like tease something going on. Do you expect this to be anything like that significant, or simply just maybe Reigns appearing on Triple Mania or something like that?
This was a very bizarre way to end the show, almost as like a post-credit scene, because they held the sort of sign-off graphics for like over a minute, which made it clear they were going to have something here. And then the reveal is like that Reigns, or at least someone from the bloodline, is going to be at Triple Mania. Reigns is a huge name, so I am kind of skeptical that he's going to be at Triple Mania. But it's just like,
no way. This would not they would not do this scene if Reigns was simply sending Jey Uso or like Jimmy or even Jacob, right? Like this has to. Again, we don't know what this is. Right?
I guess my thing is like, why would you end your episode of Raw talking about this show that like a fraction of your fan base even cares about, better yet finds time for?
Well, I mean, they do make time for it. Like you have
they make time for it, but like on the mid card. Like this was ending the show. Like I take your point about how like the main event isn't the biggest point of Raw these days, but like to me this was just like laughable. It's like you basically just ended the show with like a kind of a quick plug that you have this thing on Saturday nights.
So I number one, they have a bunch more tickets to sell for this show, right? And I do think like they are recognizing how maybe in demand this Triple Mania show is in Las Vegas, and sensing that this could be their big at bat to like make a big stamp for a TV deal that they are still after in the American market, and like putting Reigns on that show, I think is a strong move. I mean, it doesn't cost him that much. He's not going to be wrestling on the show.
Yeah, no, for me, it's like, for AAA to be like this thing that they kind of showcase sometimes on the mid card and things like that, and then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, we're gonna have Roman Reigns here. It's like, whoa, like this is just this huge like sort of sudden elevation of it that just feels jarring in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I mean, it remains to be seen. Again, I'm just even speculating that this is related to Triple Mania, but it's hard for me to sense it's anything else. But what would he do on the show?
The thing that's silly about this to me is like, I guess the fact that this Rey Mysterio thing had literally nothing to do with the numerous segments that Roman had tonight. It was just kind of like this side note of like, hey, come on to the show that's completely unrelated to everything that you do. But I don't know.
Well, we'll see how they make it related, I suppose. Yeah, this
I'm curious to see. I'm curious to see how they pitch how Roman Reigns, who is essentially unaware of Triple Mania, somehow is enticed to perform or be on Triple Mania, or sorry, to be in AAA. Like he doesn't even know who manages the show. So if they somehow get him on this show, hey, Rey Mysterio might be the best general manager of all time if he pulls this.
Maybe he doesn't even know what AAA is, and he's thinking like, "You want me to go like take you to the auto center?" Like, is that like?
yeah.
He doesn't even know.
Is this like
a
gym
do you want to watch minor league baseball with you? Like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I do now. That's a great line.
Anyway, so your thoughts overall on tonight's edition of Raw?
You know, I think that it's tough. Like, I really enjoyed a lot of the mid card here. The mid card matches were fun. I like where they're going with Obafemi and Braun. I'm not that hot on what they're doing with Reigns and LA Knight, and I thought this was a really kind of flat is a little too harsh, but I thought it was a pretty soft landing at the end of the show.
So there's a real come down certainly from like maybe the sort of like grandeur of like your WrestleMania programs to now what certainly feels like a run up to like a B-level show, you know, with Knight versus Reigns as a program. I guess like Braun and Oba feels big, but that might not necessarily even be Money in the Bank. Could be a Survivor Series thing. In addition to that, like the big moments of the show were the return of Big Cass. The return of Becky Lynch and Stephanie Vaquer. So I was happy with like the injection into the women's division. Overall, this felt like it had enough news for it that I think was like made it a worthwhile sort of like night after a big pay-per-view type of event. Even if like, you know, I thought the main event was strong, but like, I don't know.
The match itself was really good. I enjoyed the match, and I'm not trying to take away from that. It's just the positioning and the storyline around it really lacked in a way that I think took away from the match, which again, like it was fun, and I agree with you in saying that Keys probably had his best WWE match so far in that.
So, of course, we now go to hear what some of your thoughts were. But before that, we want to bid farewell to all of our free listeners on our free feeds and also on our YouTube. Again, John Pollock will be back with me on Wednesday for this week's edition of The Double Shot, talking about Dark Side of the Ring. We will be back with our WWE Unreal reviews later on in the month as well. Also this month, we have a UFC 330 review. Are you a part of that?
We'll see.
We'll see. Okay. We also have our ROH Death Before Dishonor review with Kate and Bruce, TNA Lockdown, which John will be going through at some point in the Post Wrestling Cafe. And also a reminder, Patrons Pick coming out. I should reveal our choices right now. I'll remind myself. So Patrons Pick, for people who don't know, sometimes we have our executive producers who just simply for whatever reason like don't want to make a pick or forget to, or simply just like don't have the time to like come up with a pick. So in their place, John and I will select selections ourselves. And I probably should have gone through this myself first before actually choosing, but we have a few choices here. 2 choices from John, 2 choices from myself. John's first choice is SummerSlam 1991, featuring the match made in heaven and the match made in hell. Also features Bret Hart versus Mr. Perfect. I can immediately say that feels like they're already the front runner of these selections here. My choice is wrestling related as well. My first choice is MLP Mayhem episodes 1 and 2. We don't typically have like the space to sort of like talk about that particular show. It does maybe get some sort of like discussion here in our space, and therefore a dedicated show to talking about the first 2 episodes. I will offer that to the audience if they want that. And then a non-wrestling choice from John happens to be Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie. Have you seen it?
No,
Jack?
I haven't, but I mean, that's like the talk of the town. We both live in Toronto, and I feel like you can't walk like 1 block without hearing people talk about that movie. So yeah, that would be a good one. We'll see how much it resonates with our global viewership.
It is certainly Toronto centric, and I've heard enough about it, but I really don't know much about what the series nor the movie are about. But I'm certainly curious about that one. My non-wrestling choice is the AI doc, or How I Became an Apocalyptimist. This is a documentary about AI that I'm just even reading the sentence here and realizing it's probably not going to win, but it is a documentary about AI, which just is a topic of discussion, I think at the top of everybody's minds, and this would offer a chance for John and I to at least like talk about the topic at length. So again, your choices for Rewind-A coming up next week. And I will put this into a formal poll that I'll send to all of our patrons. SummerSlam 1991, Bret versus Perfect, match made in heaven, match made in hell. Number 2, MLP Mayhem, episodes 1 and 2. Number 3, Nirvana, the band, the movie, the show, the movie. And then number 4, the AI doc, or How I Became an Apocalyptimist, documentary that's available on Amazon Prime. So those are
a lot of CanCon to pick from.
There we go. So, until Wednesday, we will bid farewell to you guys. Be sure to listen to Up Next with Davey Portman and a returning Braden Harrington, I'm assuming, this week, Jack. Unless Jack
I haven't been asked to fill in. I mean, there's still another like 22 hours until they go live, so maybe it'll happen. But I do think it is the normal lineup this week.
Jack has been incredibly hardworking over the past week, so thank you so much appearing on multiple shows for us. And with all that said, let's go over to your feedback in the Post Wrestling Cafe.